Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today again on SportsNetworker.com. I'm happy to be joined by a very, very interesting person, along with my good friend Brett Stewart, nine-time author of countless fitness books, active marathon runner, active triathlon participant. I'm sure everyone will enjoy this as much as I am. Brett, how you doing today?
Great, Lucas. How are you?
I'm doing well. Brett, let's jump right in here to the first couple questions. You've written over 9 books regarding exercising and healthy eating. What makes you so passionate about fitness and eating healthy and dieting?
The biggest reason why I'm into fitness is because I wasn't as a kid. I was, for lack of a better term, a little bit pudgy. I was the slow kid who got on the baseball team because his dad was the coach. My brother was an all-star, and I was just kind of one of those kids that just filled the roster spot. And I love sports. I really enjoyed sports, but I never took that extra step to get, to become better, to try really hard, to get fit or eat right or anything. And, I like to say that I remedied that in my teens or 20s, but it didn't happen until I was about 30 years old, and I found myself as an overweight guy that was smoking too much and eating poorly, and I went out to play softball, and I was easily winded, and I was tired, and it wasn't who I wanted to be. In my mind, I was still a decent baseball player, but in reality, I was overweight and was out of breath running to first base, and that just wasn't going to cut it.
Along with that, you've gone from that to now an active marathon and triathlon participant. I mean, you'll tell the audience how many you do, but it's not just one or two. What
Well,
motivates you to continue to participate in these kind of events?
well, yeah, it's quite a few events. If my wife were to tell you, she'd probably say it was hundreds. I think it's more closer to 100 or so. But my very first event, a buddy of mine, I go over this in my triathlon book, but a buddy of mine dragged me out to do a duathlon, which was a 2 mile run, I don't know, 10, 12, whatever mile bike, and then another 2 mile run. And I figured, this can't be all that hard. And about the first half a mile into it, I was miserable. I finally finished the run, and I was miserable on the bike. My chain kept falling off. I couldn't stand it. Luckily for me, I had the drive to want to finish. And then something happened. In duathlons, you transition between the bike and the run. So coming out of transition number 2, going into the run, something weird happened. I saw the looks on the faces of my family. I heard the crowd. I saw other people on the course actually enjoying it. And they weren't doing any better than I was. And they were having fun. They were laughing and cheering and smiling and suffering like the rest of us. But I said, what? I'm already here. I'm already sweaty. I can't quit now. My family sees me here, and I stuck it out, and I decided to have a little bit of fun. I enjoyed those last 2 miles, and crossing the finish line was one of the greatest things I've ever done. There's giving birth to my 2 children, being father to my wife, giving birth to my children, to getting married. But that was right up there. It was really a magical moment for me, and that changed my entire life. And I knew right when I finished that race that I wanted to do that for the rest of my life.
I mean, you pretty much are doing that as you're sponsored by several brands, one being the Hitch Triathlon. I'm hoping you could talk about your sponsorships, sort of about what makes them unique to you, like how'd you pick them out,
Sure.
and what you look for when you advertise on certain brands.
Sure. Well, Lucas, it's not so much sponsorships as it is partnerships. If it's not a brand that I use, if it's not a brand that I believe in, or it's not people, or a thought process that I can get behind, I don't want anything to do with it. One of the things that's really really common with fitness authors or fitness writers in magazines or even trainers, people will hawk products, and to each their own. People can do whatever they want, but unless it's something that I'm really passionate about, I don't advertise for supplements. I don't unless it's something that I use, and usually I won't advertise on my websites. It'll be the type of thing that I'll tell somebody when I'm training them, or I'll tell someone when we're exercising together or on a group run. But I'm not in it to build other brands unless it's things that I really believe in. And you mentioned the Hits Triathlon series. That's a race company that's taking triathlon in a whole different area. The swim, bike, and run are the same. One of the interesting things that they do is they make it family friendly because they draw in. It's a 2-day event instead of just a traveling circus showing up one day and taking off. They actually come in a couple of months ahead of time and do a triathlon camp for newcomers. So that's great. That's really exciting. What they do on the race weekend is even more interesting. On Saturday, they'll have three races. They'll have an open, a sprint, and an Olympic distance, which are really kind of family friendly. Obviously, the Olympic and sprint double on what the open is. They keep compounding each other, but they provide enough on Saturday for most of the family, and then on Sunday they have a half 70.3 and a 140.6 distance. So they have the half and a full or ultra distance. But the one thing that I really like about it is that on Saturday the open is free. So people that have never raced a triathlon before can show up on Saturday and literally get their feet wet and get in and enjoy the sport. And something that I've always felt since 2004 when I launched the ESPN triathlon team, with my co-founders, is I've always wanted to be an ambassador to people that haven't raced before, whether it's a 5K, whether it's anything all the way up to a triathlon or an obstacle race. I like seeing a first timer come out and experience the type of excitement like I just talked about at my first duathlon. That feeling of wow, I can do this. The feeling of empowerment to know that no matter how miserable you might be in the first couple of miles, there's always that finish line to look forward to and the accomplishment that you set by reaching your goals.
For those who are watching this and have not done a marathon or triathlon, what recommendations would you give to someone who's thinking about participating in it, for the first time? I mean, I myself ran cross country in high school.
Yep.
When I would get to the second mile mark and I had a mile and a half, I wanted to stop right there. I mean, how do you give recommendations to someone who, when they get to the 2 mile marker, they still got 24 more to go?
Well, there's a whole lot of things you covered there. Number one. The first couple miles suck. I don't care if you've done 100 marathons or you've done 1 5K. Whether you're training, whether you're running, whether you're racing, whether you're just going out for a leisurely jog, the first couple miles are usually never fun. The harder you run them, the harder they are. It's not until after that you really get into the flow of it. So as a cross country racer, you only had you had 2 miles of misery and then the last mile to finish.
Right.
But with anything, it's all about the goals that you set. If you start off small, if you're sitting on a couch, if you're watching this out there, and you're sitting on a couch today, and you haven't run a mile ever, if not for a very long time, small goals. You get out, you jog to the next mailbox, you walk for a minute, work your way up to 30-30s, where you're jogging for 30 seconds and walking for 30 seconds, and then you continue to build that up. Mileage is great. You can put it in the bank. It's the type of thing that every mile that you run or jog or walk is only a benefit to you. So that's the great thing about training to run an event is you can do it over time. It definitely takes anywhere from 7 to 16 weeks is what's usually recommended to run any distance based on what your base mileage is. But you can grow mileage so easily. You just have to do it. And the greatest thing about setting small goals, whether it's a marathon, a triathlon, or an obstacle race, or weightlifting or weight loss, if you set small attainable goals, it's much easier to keep going. Lose that 1 pound, lose that dress size. Don't worry about losing 60 pounds at once. You're only running to the next mailbox, and even in the lowest points of some marathons where I've just been miserable, or even during Ironman when I was so beaten up. Getting to the next signpost or getting to the next corner or making it to the next street is all that becomes necessary. And once you get there, you reevaluate. If your body's still working, you keep moving forward. And that's exactly one of the phrases that I use in the triathlon book. If something is working, keep doing it. If something isn't working, stop doing it. But all in all, keep moving forward. And that's really the most important thing. Now, the first thing that you asked about is how should a beginner get into a triathlon or marathon or any type of race? Volunteer. You don't jump into something without seeing it first. You don't know what a triathlon is like until you've been there. You can read my book. You can read any book you want. You can watch videos of Ironman on NBC and get that great feeling. I want to go do that. Unless you go out to a triathlon, and you see what it's all about and you get involved by being a volunteer, you just don't understand it. You need to do it. You need to do it before you can really be involved. Or you need to be involved before you can really do it. It's really a walk before you can run. In this case, it's really crawl before you can walk. You need to show up and understand what a triathlon's all about before you show up on race day, because it's not only good for you because you're safer, but for the safety of everyone else. You have to know what's going on.
See, that's what's so great about your books. I've read a couple of them, and it's not like just a free-for-all. It's very laid out goals. Accomplish the first goal before you get to the second. Accomplish the second before you get to the third. It's not just here's what you need to do now. Do it in a week or do it in a year. It's very, very goal-oriented. So how important do you think it is to not just set a couple goals, but set goals all across until you want to reach that final goal?
Well, thank you. By the way, I appreciate that, and I love the fact that you get what my books are about. They're all progressive programs. You start at point A and you finish. Who knows where? Some people get wrapped up in the fact that the books are 7 weeks or they're a specific number of this, and that is so completely out of the realm of what they're really about. Yes, it's a title, and yes, we do our damn best to squeeze everything into a particular period, because being able to be quantifiable is one of the goal points for so many people. But if you take all the exercise and take the programs out of it, it's getting you from point A to point B to point C to point D, and realizing that once you're on that journey, that you can continue going. Fitness for me did not happen in 7 weeks. Fitness for me happened over the last 12 years, and it's continuing to happen. Luckily for me, I did it in my 30s. Guys like you get to do it in their early 20s, and well, you did it in high school. But I played guitar in high school, so. I wasn't a jock. I was a long hair, but I found fitness really. I'd like to say late, but you know what? 30 is the new 18.
Right.
Is that
right?
But really, I'm 42. I'm in the best shape of my life, and I really truly enjoy what I do. And it's not just about making me better. Because I strive for that every single day. I'll tell you, there's not a day that I wake up that I don't want to get better, because I know I wasted 30 years, and I'm trying to, maybe a little bit of me is trying to get that back. But I love helping other people. The emails that I get, I don't post all of my testimonials and stuff, because honestly, I think that's a little bit cheap. People will send me emails because it's a one-on-one conversation. They want to know, they want to tell me if they like it. They want to tell me if they don't like it. They want to, ask me questions about what they can do to make themselves better, and that's my job. That's what I'm here for. And I truly take that responsibility. It's really a high honor, and I really spend a lot of time answering every single email I get. I want to be better. I want to help other people be better, and that's really what fitness is to me. It's progressive, a progressive program. We set goals, we achieve goals, and we keep moving on.
In order to participate in a marathon or a triathlon, it's not just physically demanding; it's mentally demanding, because everybody's body is going to want to quit, and you have to fight through it. So, what do you think is the most important characteristic to have, not only in those type of events, but in just life in general?
Well. I like the fact that you mentioned life in general, because a marathon or anything that's an endurance race is a lot like life. A 5K isn't like life.
Right.
A 5K, you go out there and you pound as hard as you can,
right,
and you finish.
Mm-hmm.
A marathon's a pretty good metaphor for life. A long distance triathlon's a better metaphor, and I think that I'm big into. I like ultra distance for some reason, but a 50 or 100 mile race is really a fantastic metaphor for life, because if you don't maintain a steady keel, if you can't wrap your mind around the fact that you're going to be going through highs, you're going to be going through lows, and you have to figure them out on your feet. You have to figure going along. There's no quitting. There's no stopping. Yeah, there's resting, but you don't walk off the race course. And that's one of the things. You mentioned the physical aspect. Obviously, that's huge. You have to be able to endure. But I've seen people of every shape and size. From 80-year-old. I raced one of my first half Ironmans. I raced, and there was I came back into transition. I'm getting my bike and I'm packing up, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And I'm standing next to an 80-year-old guy. No, I think he was 84, and we were having this conversation. It's blowing my mind because he beat me. I was 34 84-year-old guy, and he flat out beat me. But we're talking, and he said, "Yeah, I'm getting a little bit older. I think I'm only going to do about 7 of these this year." It just blew my mind, and I was thinking, number one, that's awesome that he kicked my butt. Number two, if I can do this until I'm 84 years old, I'm psyched. So, but even obstacle races, I've seen grandmothers that are 100 pounds overweight finishing the course. I've got some great pictures when I was doing my obstacle race book of what was it, Tough Mudder, and they've got this series of walls that's 2 or 3 obstacles in, and they're these 8-foot high walls are very difficult. One after the other. I think there's 4 of them in succession, and they call them Berlin walls. And I have these great photos of this woman who's probably about 280 pounds, whatever, and a smile on her face when she got to the wall. And she made it through. She finished the course. I was there to watch her finish. It's we're a 12-mile course with 19 or 20 obstacles. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. The great thing about fitness is it's all relative. Anybody can go out there, anybody can show up, and anybody with the desire and the drive can finish. Of course, there's the physical component to it, but a huge part of it is mental. You have to fight through the highs and the lows. And talking to the metaphor of life, that's what life's all about. I've been divorced. I've been unemployed. I've had difficult, really rough patches in my life that I've been lucky enough to get through, and I've learned well after the fact on a lot of these things. But being able to have that drive that pulls you through, that mentality that you can survive, that you can adapt, that you can figure it out, and that you can if you need to assess the situation and move on, that is the type of thing that you can do. Positivity goes a long way. I like to be positive in my books. I like to be positive in my workouts. I love being positive when I train people for a new personal best. Because that's what it's all about. It's all about knowing you can do it and then going out there and actually doing it.
Brett, the age aspect of what you just mentioned, that leads very nicely into the final question we have for you tonight. No, not that, and you certainly don't look like it. But the last question we have for you tonight is what would you say to somebody who's maybe watching this and saying, you know what, I'm past my prime, I'm too old to participate in this. Maybe I'll go for a walk later today, but what would you say to somebody who's watching this and saying, you know what, I'm too old, I can't do this?
I fight with my parents about that. My parents are in great shape. I love my parents to death. They're really good people. I would love for them to be more fit. My dad was a carpenter his whole life, so he's a strong guy. Doesn't like fitness. They don't like they'll walk whatever, they'll do whatever, but they don't exercise for fun. And I understand. A lot of people don't want to exercise for fun. I see the positive benefits of exercising for the things that I do, and it's not just the races. I've taken an entire season off from racing before, and I maintain my physical regimen because I want to stay in shape. I've worked really hard to get into shape, but the idea that you're too old, I think I just bashed that when I mentioned the 84-year-old finishing a half Ironman ahead of me, beating me. Boy, it's still tough to discuss, but. I was really proud of my time that day. Man, what a heck of a guy. I would love for him to see this and say, boy, that little whippersnapper or whatever you call it, was really motivated by me. But seriously, there's no age, and it's all relative to you. Whether it's walking, walking your dog or playing with your grandkid, or whether you're 5 years old and you're saying, well, maybe a 5-year-old wouldn't be really fun. But if you have a 5-year-old kid and you're doing exercises at home, kids, monkey see, monkey do. Mm-hmm. That is the best way to get a kid into fitness. I'm going to go off on a tangent right now, but I will tell you, when I'm doing calisthenics inside the house, or my wife is doing them, my daughter's always right. My 3-year-old daughter's always right there. She's doing push-ups. She's doing forward rolls. She's jumping back during push-ups. It's really, really important for you to find fitness that works for you. And it might be a little tiny bit. It might be a walk. It might be a jogging. Whatever it is, find fitness that works for you and keep with it. And don't be afraid to kick it up a couple of inches. You don't have to go insane, but fitness is hugely important. Whether you're 5 or 85, and you're never too old to start, and you're surely never too old that you have to quit. So it's just you pick something that works for you and you stick with it.
Brett, thanks again for joining us today. Your books are great. If anybody watching hasn't checked them out, there's so many of them. They're so great. 7 Weeks to Fitness, 7 Weeks to Getting Ripped, 7 Weeks to Running a Triathlon. They're all great. Definitely check them out. Brett, thanks again for joining us today. For SportsNetworker.com, I'm Lucas Biebelberg. Have a great night.
Thanks, Lucas.